Good morning and welcome. Patriot Radio News Hour, Joe, and eventually Jason on this Thursday. I hope it finds you well out there. It's going to be 90 degrees in the Valley of the Sun tomorrow, and then it's going to cool down a little bit, but we still got a little while before the 100-degree plus temperatures hit. O.J. Simpson passed away today, in case you didn't ever missed it. He is no longer with us. He's forever changed the white Bronco for me. Every time I see one of those old white Broncos now, I immediately think of O.J. But, yeah, boy, what a sad turn of history that was. 800-951-0592 is our toll-free number. AllAmericanGold.com is the website. Yesterday, big down day in the markets. Gold had a down day. So I guess that was good. We hadn't seen one in a while. Right now, back up here, $23.40, up almost $11 right now. Silver down just a little bit right now, just below $28 as we had the producer prices out today. Yesterday, remember, we had the CPI. We got a lot more to talk about there. The Federal Reserve in a little bit of trouble here, but the PPI, that's the producers. What were they saying? How hot was inflation for them? And it came in less than expected. Or did it? The headline came out only up 0.2, and then again, this is kind of the problem that we have, right? Because we don't know, especially when the Fed tells us, "Oh, we're gonna rely on the data." But if the data's not any good, right? What are we doing? So the reason for the miss, only up 0.2%. They were expecting 0.3, and it was probably 4. Was for whatever reason, I don't know why, but the Bureau of Labor Statistics said that in the month of March, we're going to just seasonally adjust the energy prices and the gas prices. So all of us know, right? Remember, gas shot up here in Arizona, gas shot up $1 a gallon just for gas. Forget about energy in March. But somehow, apparently, Jason, you can seasonally adjust that. See? So don't worry. Next time you fill up, right, you can just go into the store and say, "Hey, I need a seasonal adjustment on my tank of gas here because, So for whatever reason, they seasonally adjusted and actually said gas and energy prices were lower. And then once that came out, everyone kind of was like, okay, yeah, we may really have a bigger problem with inflation than everybody wants to admit right now."
I think that's what we've been saying, and I think when we said inflation was bad, before it really started to get into everybody's minds, 2021 it was getting bad, 2022 it was bad, and people just figured it out later, right, Joe? They just wandered around, it's like, "Oh, I heard something about that," and then finally they went to a grocery store one day, and when they really needed to buy stuff, it's like, well, they were right. Well, you just said the inflation's a lot more worse than they're saying, and it's going to get worse more than they're saying, and that's what we've been saying, and it's we're going to continue to say until whatever new scheme is unhatched. And if the inflation cools off, I think we determined now, Joe, that the year-over-year CPI is going to be in the 3s, which means actual inflation is 7 or 8. The whole 2% that they had for years and years, their target number was always half. If you look at the money creation and the annual average inflation, real terms, before 2020, it was about 5% a year. We were dealing with 5%, not 2. So what's this going to be, Joe, when this is all over with? 7 or 8? Because that's what it looks like now. It looks like maybe 8 or even 9.
So to give you an idea of how big, According to the seasonally adjusted number, your energy prices and your gas prices, they went down 3.6%. Here's what's kind of funny. They actually went up 6.3%. Huge swing that made this number look a little better. But to Jason's point, we have more data about the CPI, the super core that Jay Powell had told us, this is the number we like the best. You know, we got the headline number, then the core number, but we really like the super core number. You're not going to believe how bad it really was. In yesterday's report, we have an update today on the budget deficit. The how big is it going to get? The CBO yesterday now saying, okay, they originally told us 3 months ago the debt was going to be $1.6 trillion. They've got a new number out. You can guess, it's above 2 and rising. It's the second largest deficit ever for the first 6 months of a fiscal year. And Jason, this is with continuing resolutions, right? I mean, we didn't even get an actual budget done until almost the end of March. So this number is going to get much, much bigger, and auction problems for the Treasury markets. One of the worst auctions ever on 10-year notes yesterday. That was the day before we had that disaster in the 3-year note. So we got that and so much more all coming. 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason sitting here on this Thursday. A quick look in the year of chaos. Right now, the Dow down 225 points, was down, got at one point down almost 600 points yesterday, finished down 400 and change, just above 38,000 now. The S&P's down 6. The Nasdaq's up 50. The 10-year note, boy, buying a car, a mortgage, it's going to get a lot more expensive here. 458 on the 10-year note. Again, big shot up yesterday as the 10-year note auction, one of the worst on records. We'll get to that in a minute. Crude oil's down $1. It was up $1 yesterday. You know, every I don't know, day or two, it's the Iran's going to strike. It's going to happen any minute now, within the next 24 hours. That happened yesterday, maybe today. It's not going to happen. I don't know. Who knows? And gold, like I said, gold's up 11. Silver now down only 5 cents right now, at $27.99. But you need to get ready. This, we had, remember the dot-com bubble, right? Everyone remembers, right? Anything.com, right, was worth it. We have a lot of this happening with AI as well right now, right? Every company is saying, we got our AI initiative and this AI, that AI initiative, and they make all these press releases and AI this and AI that, and their stock goes up 5% or 10%. And the realities are, what the guys digging into this are saying is, there's no AI here, right? This isn't what it appears to be. And I think this is going to be, when this bubble bursts, this is going to be why we're going to see a huge downswing in these markets. Be prepared. Get ready. Have things that, have different buckets. You got to have your gold and silver bucket. Listen, you got a 401k and stuff. You got your stock market bucket. But if you got $50,000 or more and you can use an existing IRA, boy, maybe a good time to check out why refi, because up to 10.25% fixed rates of return. Heck, if you want to go 1 year, it's 6.5%. And it's not correlated to Wall Street. Well, what happens if the Dow loses 10,000 points? Nothing. Right? Nothing. What happens if inflation comes back? Nothing. Right? What you take the what ifs out of it? Like I said, you got to have a minimum of 50,000. Check them out. InvestYRefi.com. That's the word invest, the letter Y, REFY.com. Or just call them at 888-YREFI24. So yesterday, the Congressional Budget Office said for the first 6 months of the year, the deficit topped $1.1 trillion, and they've now adjusted the deficit for fiscal year 2024 to $2.2 trillion. So, they did real scientific, right? Hey, we'll just double the first 6 months. Of course, remember, Congress started spending a bunch of money, when they finally got the continuing resolutions passed. By the way, it is the second largest 6-month deficit ever. Only the COVID year surpassed it. March deficit hit $236 billion. That's $40 billion more than what they expected. February's number was $296 billion. You kind of get the idea, right? It's like $300 billion almost every single month now. Government tax receipts, $332 billion. So you had a lot of people. So, some people pay their taxes early, especially March. It's getting close to April 15th. They're saying that tax receipts are down 5% compared to a year ago. And, of course, as we know, right, spending continuing to rise as the government continues to spend out of control. But, Jason, this is just another indicator here of how big the problem is going to get, right? Everything's priced to perfection. Now, all of a sudden, we're having problems in these debt markets and getting this debt sold. And we're talking about approaching all-time record-high debts in the good time, right? I guess we can maybe understand COVID. Okay, it was COVID. They shut it all down. We got to run a big deficit, right? That's going to happen. We're paying everyone not to go to work. But we don't have that now. And yet we're talking about numbers that are getting, we're getting eerily close now to $3 trillion. And, of course, Bank of America says, hey, wait for next year. We may skip $3 trillion altogether, go right to $4 trillion.
And the scary thing, Joe, is we're starting to report it. If we get the job, if the Fed gets the job losses they're looking for, if price reductions in cars and other like washers and dryers and windows for your house, and if prices start to drop on those things and job losses start to happen, the scary thing, Joe, is this kind of inflation that we're experiencing doesn't look like the necessities are going to stop going into inflation. So, yeah, it's great. You can maybe get a cheaper car because no one's buying cars because no one can afford it. Well, how is that going to help balance out the amount of food, energy, and rent costs that are still going up? That's the thing that for inflation to go away, Joe, real inflation, the average family, those things have to stop going up so fast. I get the feeling that's not going to happen, Joe. I get the feeling that a lot of markets that are not necessities are going to go down in price and job losses will happen, and then food and energy goes up. That's something I don't think anybody is really prepared for, Joe.
If the used car goes down $3,000 or $4,000, but you have to pay 2% more in interest or 1% more in interest, did it go down? Right? That's the problem, right? Right? Because right now, getting a car loan now just got more expensive. Got a lot more expensive in just the last week. But let's take a look. 2 days ago, we had the largest 3-year note auction ever, $58 billion. And it was just a disaster, right? We had a big tail. And not only did we have, matter of fact, it was the biggest tail in over a year. The bid to cover way below what the average was on it. And then, of course, the dealers having to take almost 20%. And this was a 3-year auction. Those are, less, right? They're less amount of time. Usually we don't have problems in the shorter auctions, right? If we're going to have big tails, it's in the 10-year, the 20-year, the 30-year. Yesterday, it was the 10-year note, and I thought, you know what? God, rates popped up. Maybe we won't have a problem today. Maybe they're going to be happy getting, 4.4 or 4.45. Nope. The third worst auction ever on the 10-year note, and this was only $39 billion of 10-year notes, stopped out at 456. It was the third largest tail on record, but then it got worse. So that's never good. So when we're talking about next, some of you are like, what does this mean, tail? And just really,
it's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. What that means is the paper market said 10-year note should yield 4.4%. And then they had the auction, and nobody bid. Well, I shouldn't say no. Not enough people bid to get a 10-year note at 4.4. Not enough people bid at 4.45. Not enough people bid at 4.5. Not enough people bid at 4.55. Finally, they got $39 billion sold at 4.56. But here's what was terrible: the bid to cover, one of the worst on record. So normally you get like 2.5 times now. It used to be 3. Now we're down to 2.5. This was down to 2.3. So that's a big drop. Then inside of it, foreign buyers just didn't come. They just didn't come. Normally, foreign buyers are going to snatch up 70, 75% of these types of bills, 60. Then well below the recent averages. Even the directs didn't want them. The dealers, and this is kind of what we worry about, Jason, they almost had to take down 25% of the 10-year auction yesterday. That was the only thing that kept it at 456, right? Who knows where it would have been if the dealers didn't step in and finish out this auction. But already this morning now, word is kind of leaking out that the Fed is going to cut in half its quantitative tightening. So that's going to be really, really interesting. That's probably going to be the next catalyst, right? That's going to drive gold and silver prices higher.
The tails that you're talking about, Joe, are going to be it might be the leading indicator for the Fed to bring back the supplementary leverage ratio rule. That's when I was learning about this thing. This was what was talked about as being one of the things that would lead us back to this thing that nobody really knows about, that was in place for a year during COVID, that the banks loved, right, Joe? Just get rid of the rules, get rid of any responsibility. We know what happens when you get rid of rules and responsibility. You have mortgage-backed securities being packed together and rated AAA when they're all just crap and the types of stuff that banks should be staying away from. Well, the supplementary leverage ratio rule is another thing that banks probably should stay away from. But the greed, right, Joe? The greed is going to, if they put that back in place, what a ticking time bomb that'll turn into, and then the Fed will get to blame everybody but themselves. It's the bank's fault. It's everybody else's fault. They did this. But yeah, Joe, that when you start talking tails, the largest tails, that's a serious indication of things that aren't going right.
Yeah, and yesterday we got the CPI. This morning, well, really yesterday afternoon, we got some more details inside of that report. The super core, as it's known, I call this the homeless person's inflation. because they exclude food, they exclude energy, and they exclude housing. Okay? So now, when you hear that, the first thing you assume is, oh, well, that's got to be a low number, right? Because what's going up? Well, let's see. Food's going up, energy's going up, housing rents are going up, right? Okay, that's got to be the low number. Up 4.8% year over year. But if you just take the first 3 months of 2024, the so-called supercore is up 8%. So, Jason, this is not a good number. This just kind of, again, if the Fed's looking at the data, how are we talking about rate cuts and how high, Jamie Dimon keeps saying it. Maybe somebody's going to start listening here sooner or later.
Maybe we have to have massive, huge bite back inflation like the early 80s before the Fed decides to raise rates again, Joe. Maybe they just need to milk it for all it's worth and wait for it to get really bad. That's what it feels like they're doing.
Yes, the super core. No food, no energy, no housing. Screaming inflation. We'll be back. 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour on this Thursday. Bloomberg U.S. credit card delinquency rates hit an all-time record high in the fourth quarter. So my guess, this is me guessing, but why do I have the feeling that we got a new all-time high in the first quarter of this year? According to the analysis from the Philadelphia Federal Reserve, they're saying that over 3.5% of all credit card balances were at least 30 days past due by the end of December. They also said it set records for debts that are 60 and 90 days past due. Stress among cardholders in payment behavior. Shares of accounts making the minimum payment rose to the highest in the series history. So not only, Jason, do we have the highest amount of balances, at least 30, 60, and 90 days delinquent, but also the amount of people making only the minimum payments are now at all-time high. So this is another one. That's just another indicator that okay, this number is going to keep getting worse here.
Yeah, credit cards for the average American, the average person, that's your last line of defense for paying your bills. I mean, some people they just love using them, I guess. So if that's your last line of defense to try to make sure everything gets paid and hoping that you can come back around and get it paid down, then delinquencies going up is a clear indication of that things are going in the wrong direction. It's probably not making payments, which is debt. If you can't make your debt payments, that's how everyone, the majority of Americans do things. If you can't make those debt payments, that shows you a clear indication of things. I don't know, Joe, this is pretty much the indicator of why you could tell if markets are getting better or worse, because we're in a debt money system. They want everybody in debt. We're here trying to sell you gold and silver. Pull yourself out of that. It's a trap. It's bad. But unfortunately, if that's the situation you're in, you got to make those debt payments and record high credit card defaults. I'm sure record high auto payment defaults are either there or coming. Joe, and then we know what the housing crisis. That's businesses and the homeowners not making their homeowners payments, and all of this is probably on its way, Joe. And unless someone waves a magic wand and starts giving money to everybody, i.e., there's the government, right? The supplemental leverage ratio rule. The reason I bring it up is because that's the banks loaning the almost risk-free money to the government, and the government can just spend. And what are they going to do? Universal basic income? That's a great way for universal basic income, huh? Let the banks just sell untold amounts of debt to the government. How long will that last, Joe? But, boy, the people are going to love it if they can't pay their credit cards.
It is going to be another one of these issues. By the way, jobless claims today, 211,000, right? I'm just going to say 210 every week. It doesn't matter what the news is somehow. Of course, that's another Bureau of Labor Statistics number, just to say, they're the same guys that gave us the producer prices today where, I don't know, somehow you can seasonally adjust inflation. But 211,000, and it's something where things are starting to look a whole lot worse when you start thinking about, wait a minute, Supercore was up 8% so far this year. And the Fed is acting like everything's fine. Well, we're still waiting for more evidence that inflation is under control as it's running wild again. At the same time, the consumer is saying with their pocketbook, we're out of money. Not everybody, right? Not everybody. And a lot of people think, well, 3.5%, that's not that much. That's crazy. You think about, credit cards. I only have two, right? And I think that's rare. And one of them is for business, right? So I only have one, and I never even use it. I don't even know if it still works because I just don't use it. But for a lot of people, you think about how many millions of credit cards you think are out there, Jason, and you think about, wait a minute, what is there? I don't know, 50 million, 100 million. Right? You think about 3.5%, or that's just 30 days, right? They added the 60s and the 90s. Now you're talking 5%. Now you're saying, oh, by the way, another 10% are only making the minimum payments. It's real easy to see where this is headed. We had FICO scores actually go down for the first, remember they changed after the financial crisis and they felt bad. Oh, that sucks. You lost your house. And you took every dollar out of your 401k. Well, we're going to make it so it doesn't look so bad on your credit anymore. And everyone's credit scores, miraculously got better. Now they're getting worse again because, people aren't paying. We got 50% of the student loan borrowers not paying. How many of them are in this credit card category as well? It really is. It's coming. And it's coming. I guess we don't know exactly when, Jason, but man, are we seeing the signs or what? A slowing economy with inflation getting hotter, and now people are out of money.
With the mortgage-backed securities, the failure rate, I think when it got to 8% was financial Armageddon. Right. And the guys that were putting the shorts in, the ones that were looking at this thing and placed bets against that this was going to happen, they were late to the game. A lot of them didn't even know what was going on until it was already at 4%. And at 4%, things were looking really bad. And, that was 2006, right? By 2008, it hit 8%, and you had financial Armageddon. The whole world acted like it was the end of the world financially. They were talking capitalism is over. At 8%, defaults on mortgage-backed securities, which is a big fund of huge amounts of mortgages that were failing. And not all the mortgages were failing in that fund. It just took a little bit in there, and the whole thing collapsed. And 8% of those funds spelled economic disaster that everybody talks about probably forever, right, Joe? And you're saying credit card defaults at 3.5%. That's halfway to that 8. I wonder what 8% credit card defaults would actually look like, Joe. How bad, how horribly bad would that actually be? Because it's a big number, Joe. It's a big number, and if it gets bigger, which it looks like it will, it's gonna be bad.
We're looking at that number on top of commercial real estate, right? So now there's multiple points of stress. Where the housing market was just everyone was losing their house, but they paid their cars and their credit cards. Not so much this time around. Obviously, not as big as the housing market, but when you throw those two together, it's a pretty big chunk. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back after the break. 800-951-0592. Gold's up 13, 23, 43. Kind of, I guess, took back the move down yesterday. Silver just went positive here, 28.05. U.S. Silver Eagles on sale right now, $730 a roll. If you buy a case, a Green Monster box, save $5 a roll at $725. And then the $20 Liberties. Remember, we ran a big special yesterday, $25.50 to $25.25, depending on volume. Today, everybody gets the huge volume discount. $20 gold pieces, $25 as we've got gold now. There you go, up 15 now, $25.45 or $23.45 on gold, spot gold. You can buy a $20 Liberty for $2,525. Just wow, that's just $175 over. What a great time to take advantage of these low premiums here. 800-951-0592. And really, gold just showing a lot of strength here, especially with this 10-year note. I mean, Jason, the 10-year note's bumping up on 4.6. And normally, the normal way they like to play, well, when the 10-year note goes up, the dollar's strong. I mean, the dollar's had a huge rally. Look at, the Japanese yen falling again here, kind of like a dropping knife here. Look out. There's going to be a lot of ramifications if the Japanese cannot get this under control. Has broken above 153. I don't know, kind of doesn't look like there's a lot stopping it. And the European Union, they've done such a better job with debt, Jason, that their inflation numbers are a lot less than ours. They actually had their meeting today and said, listen, we're probably cutting rates next meeting. And they're probably going to be able to do it, and it doesn't look like we are.
Yeah, we'll see. And as we said so many times, they shouldn't. But will they do it anyways? That's going to be the whole thing. Let's just see what the next couple of months have to do. I think the rest of April and May is going to tell a lot of things as far as where those rates are going to end up, right, Joe? Because it's just interesting. I think the markets just want to know if it's going to go up or down. I think the market. I think the markets don't want. I think the markets are starting to say they don't want it to stay the same anymore. I think that's what they're wanting the most now. Hey, we don't know what to do because you're just leaving it alone. You make it go up or make it go down, and let us figure out what we're going to do. Because that's kind of isn't that the feeling we're starting to get? It's not even been a year that they've left them alone, and it seems like the markets are jittery just with the Feds leaving it alone, which, to tell you the truth, might be the best thing they can do, Joe, right now, is just leave it.
Well, the problem, they told us, remember when they stopped, okay? They stopped in July of last year and told us that we need time, right? It needs time to take effect. There's a lag effect to these rate hikes that we've done. Well, fast forward, here we are in April now. So we're 9 months from the last rate hike. And the super core from yesterday's CPI was 4.8% year over year and 8% for just the last 3 months. And so I guess I'm wondering, where's the lag effect? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, or whatever the raise is up to till July, whatever effect it had wore off really fast, right, Joe? And it's the markets are saying, okay, well, you've known for several months now that it wasn't enough. Time to heat it up again. I mean, I don't like any of the bankers at all. Jamie Dimon, I'm a big fan, but there's a good chance he's going to be right, and he's looking at something. He's not a Fed chairman, is he? Maybe we get a little more honesty out of that guy. Maybe you put that guy in charge and let him be the evil overseer, and maybe he'll tell the way it is. But yeah, Joe, maybe it's going to go up. We'll see. We'll see if we get. The Fed will get pushed up. If inflation goes crazy, the Fed will have to do it. The Fed will have no choice. There is that situation.
Yeah, think about what's going on with rates right now. Of course, Jason and I told you, right? The reverse repo, right? It's not at zero, but it's essentially right there. This is as low as they want it to be, and we said it was probably going to drive up rates because there's just less and less money. And then you see the deficit numbers that come out. I mean, the CBO, it's ridiculous. It's a joke, but they went from 1.6 to 2.4 or to 2.2. But they just said, oh, all of a sudden we're going to have $600 billion more in debt. Right? Just out of nowhere. And you look at the analysis from Bloomberg. They did 1 million. 88% of the time in their little simulations, the United States suffered a debt crisis. That's what we're up against, and this is what's playing out when you see it, and it's slow moving. But that's how it is. We always say, how did you go bankrupt? Well, it's gradual at first. And then all of a sudden you woke up one day and we had a problem. I remember the financial crisis. Remember, Jim Cramer started screaming on TV, they know nothing, right? They know nothing. And Wall Street won't open on Monday if they don't do something, right? And, a couple of months before that, Ben Bernanke was talking about raising rates at the August meeting. And next thing you know, we're in a financial crisis. I think we're coming up on another one. That's just the cycles that we're in, Jason. It's boom and bust.
Agreed. Absolutely. That's why you got to pay attention to what's going on in your own household and what is leading to those.
800-951-0592. Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour, wrapping up this Thursday. Gold's at $23.45. Silver, $28.06 right now. And we have $20 gold pieces, any quantity, $2,525. Rolls of U.S. Silver Eagles, $730. If you buy 25 rolls or more, $725. I think silver, we're days away here, I think, from another big run up. I think we're going to finally get, the $30 silver we thought we'd get last year. Looks like it's going to be this year. Get ready for this. The amount of states and cities in trouble continues to grow. News out of California, utility bills, electric, natural gas, water, garbage, all what they call customer usage. They're now thinking, Jason, to try to squeeze as much out of this, forcing higher incomes to pay more for all of these services than people with lower incomes. So in other words, kind of like a two-part strategy here. Income-based strategy will depend on how much you pay for these utilities. I could absolutely see this happening all over the country where the governments of the, whether it's a city, the state, they're like, man, gosh, the guy making $50,000, he can't afford to pay anymore. He's already in debt up to his eyeballs, can't pay his credit card, can't pay his student loans. We need to raise prices. I guess what we're going to start targeting, right, people that make more money, probably going to have to start paying more for all of these basic services.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of price controls of any sort. That's just not the way it should be. The guy that's down on his luck, it could be completely his fault. And should he just pay less as a percentage for his things? I don't know. The guy that is more wealthy, maybe worked his butt off super hard to get there, and he should pay more out of his pocket for the same things, the same amount of energy that the poor guy is paying. That's not good. But when economically society starts to falter, that's exactly the path, right, Joe? That's the path.
And again, this lower standard of living, they're going to come at us in multiple ways. I don't know how we're going to be able to not have taxes go up on everybody. Well, of course, they don't do it on everybody. What do? Well, the poor don't have to pay. Everybody else does. These deficits, these bond auctions have been horrendous. I mean, just judging by what the 10-year note's doing today, my guess is whatever was being auctioned off today probably went about as well as the last couple, right? Because look at that, now we're 458 now on this 10-year note, which just signals, Jason, it's a debt bubble, it's a debt problem, and the question now, I think there's only one question, which is when does it pop? When does the bubble finally burst?
Yeah, and that could be any week or any month, or it could be sometime next year. We're going to see some action by next year at worst, but it very likely could be this year, Joe. Got to be ready.
800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour, wrapping it up on a Thursday. Jason and I are going to come right back with the Half 50.